Hello everyone, and welcome to the Tome of Silver, the show where I randomly select a game from my collection, review it, and add it to an ever-growing ranking list. Mortal Kombat. I don't think there's a single fighting game franchise that has won my heart quite like MK, except for maybe the Soul series. This line of violent fighting games has carved out quite the legacy for itself. At the time of recording, Mortal Kombat is the single highest selling fighting game franchise ever, surpassing the likes of both Street Fighter and Tekken. This is thanks to its over-the-top violence and strong appeal to casual audiences, the latter of which helped make it more appealing to consumers when compared to some of its more technical contemporaries. Even when it made its debut back in 1992, Mortal Kombat, developed by Midway, was making a name for itself. While not responsible for its inception, Mortal Kombat helped popularize the use of digitized sprites. These used images of real-life individuals who acted out the characters, giving a presentation style that stood apart from the drawn sprites of other fighters at the time. And of course, we can't ignore the massive role Mortal Kombat played in creating the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, or the E.S.R.B. This is the board that assigns a video game its rating, such as E for Everyone or M for Mature. We still use this metric today, meaning Mortal Kombat left a direct mark on the history of video games. For today's video, we'll be returning to those good old days, looking at the original 2D fighters that placed Mortal Kombat into the spotlight. Specifically, we'll be reviewing technically five titles: Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and finishing with Mortal Kombat Advance. We will be examining the versions of the games that I personally own. Since there are enough ports of the various Mortal Kombat games to make one's head spin, I want to be transparent about exactly which versions of the games I'll be reviewing. For Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3, I'll be playing the port of the arcade versions found in Midway Arcade Treasure's Extended Play for the PSP. For Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, it'll be from its DS port, simply titled Ultimate Mortal Kombat. And as Mortal Kombat Advance was developed exclusively for the Game Boy Advance, and never got any further ports, that will naturally be the version we'll be using for this video. Step into the tournament, finish them, and let's turn the page to the classic Mortal Kombat games. Mortal Kombat 1, or as I guess I have to call it now, the first one, thanks to NetherRealm Studios' brilliant naming for their newest title, was released in 1992 for arcades, the Sega Genesis, Game Boy, and Super Nintendo Entertainment System. In Earthrealm, a villainous sorcerer by the name of Shang Tsung has seized control of the Mortal Kombat martial arts tournament from its original hosts, the Shaolin monks. With the help of the hulking, four-armed Goro, Shang Tsung has won 9 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournaments. Should he win a 10th, his master, Shao Kahn, will be permitted to claim Earthrealm as his own. 7 warriors choose to participate in this tournament, each with their own reasons for joining. First, we have Johnny Cage, a Hollywood movie star based on real-life actor Jean-Claude Van Damme. Kano is the leader of a criminal organization known as the Black Dragon, wishing to win the tournament to gain a greater foothold for his syndicate. Liu Kang is a member of the Shaolin monks, and the closest Mortal Kombat has to a main protagonist. He's a symbol of virtue, wishing to put a stop to Shang Tsung's villainy and return the Mortal Kombat tournament to its rightful state. Next, we have Raiden, the God of Thunder. Though later entries will have Raiden act as protector of Earthrealm and an ally of justice, the first game has Raiden be kind of an arrogant douchebag, only joining to show off his godlike powers. He even ends up destroying Earth if he wins the tournament.
Sorry.
Far from the good-hearted, Elder God consulting Raiden we know today. Sub-Zero is a cryomancer, capable of commanding the power of ice, and is a member of a League of Assassins known as the Lin Kuei. Sub-Zero participates in the tournament purely on business, having been hired to assassinate Shang Tsung. Scorpion is an undead specter, having been murdered at the hands of Sub-Zero. Now resurrected, Scorpion joins the tournament so he may obtain revenge. Finally, we have Sonya Blade, a lieutenant in the US Special Forces. After arriving on Shang Tsung's island in pursuit of Kano, Sonya's unit was taken prisoner by Shang Tsung. Now Sonya needs to participate in the tournament to free her squad, and maybe kill Kano as a bonus. I know stories are never the main focus of fighting games, but I've always found myself deeply fascinated by the world and characters of Mortal Kombat. I like the darker tone and dire stakes Mortal Kombat brings to the table. I especially enjoy the element of mysticism that makes up much of its setting. We have gods, ninjas, sorcerers, four-armed half-dragons, and magic powers. It all made the MK universe seem so much cooler than your usual fighters. The characters themselves are also plenty awesome, especially the ninja characters Scorpion and Sub-Zero, who would go on to be the poster boys for the franchise. I've always been Team Sub-Zero myself. In this first game, I liked that the various participants had some connection to each other, like Sonya and Kano or Scorpion and Sub-Zero. The goals outside of just winning the tournament added a layer of intrigue to the overall cast. Mortal Kombat is a 4-button fighter. Each character can perform a high punch, high kick, low punch, and low kick, which naturally you could string together to perform combos. Each character also has a handful of special moves, letting them make use of unique abilities. This includes Scorpion's iconic rope spear and Raiden's electricity. This is all pretty standard stuff, but one major difference Mortal Kombat had was that blocking was its own dedicated button. Most fighters would have your character block as long as you held the control stick back away from your opponent. Having block as a separate button is one way of distinguishing itself, but when pretty much every other fighting game has you holding back to block, it can be a bit of a pain getting over the muscle memory to hit the button. As a fighter, I think Mortal Kombat was mechanically sound for its time. Each character's special moves gave them a unique fighting style that made them interesting to play around with, and the controls are both responsive and easy to get a handle on. I don't think anything about it broke the mold in terms of raw gameplay, but everything works and is fun. The only thing I can see as an issue is the punch combos. By mashing either high or low punch, your character will automatically throw a series of punches. The character being hit will be knocked away after a certain number of hits, but the exact number seems to fluctuate. This can lead to a simple punch string taking off absurd chunks of your health, and in some cases beat your opponent in a single combo. Considering how easy it is to pull these off, these could have been toned down a bit. Though considering it's something every character can do, I guess it is technically balanced. Not one character is broken compared to the rest, at least from what I've noticed. As was common for arcade fighters, Mortal Kombat lets you play multiplayer with a friend, or fight solo up the arcade ladder to face Shang Tsung. Playing solo is pretty fun, as interestingly, I found this game to have the fairest AI of all the classic games. Every fight felt appropriately challenging, but never unreasonable. That is, until you reach the endurance matches, where you're forced to beat two opponents back to back on a single health bar. And even with this handicap, you still need to win 2 out of 3 rounds as well. These were blatantly unfair, and encouraged you to adopt a playstyle that would get you smacked upside the head if you did it against a human opponent at the arcade. But such were arcade games, needing to suck every last quarter it could out of its players. Then you have the bosses, Goro and Shang Tsung. Goro can take most of your hits like a champ, and his attacks can erase massive chunks of your health in seconds. Shang Tsung is a little easier. He transforms into other fighters when you fight, including Goro. When he's another fighter, he gets knocked down and comboed like any other character, so it's not so bad dealing with him. Honestly, his most annoying attack is when he's an old man and fires 3 flaming skulls at you. Look at that, look how much damage that did! Both bosses are too difficult for me to defeat by normal, careful play, and instead are best dealt with by exploiting their AI and hitting them with a bunch of jump kicks. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the most memorable aspect of Mortal Kombat, the fatalities. Once you've defeated your opponent, you'll be commanded to finish him, or her, by inputting a special command. The screen will go dark, and your character will perform a fatality, brutally killing the opponent by ripping out their heart or tearing off their head with their spine still attached. It's easy to take these fatalities for granted nowadays, especially with the advancement in video game technology and violence being far more commonplace. But in its time, blood and gore were a rarity in video games. Some versions of Mortal Kombat were even censored to get rid of blood, going so far as changing some characters' fatalities. This made fatalities a massive talking point, well, more of a controversy, which made Mortal Kombat seem almost exotic to the young gamer. Another aspect that made them so interesting was learning how to perform them. Nothing on the arcade machine or within the game itself told players how to perform fatalities. Players typically learned about fatalities through a combination of trial and error, word of mouth from other players, or gaming magazines and strategy guides. Imagine you're playing against someone in the arcade. They manage to best you, and the ever-familiar finish him appears on screen. You've seen this a bunch of times before, but this time, rather than just punching you, his character makes you explode with electricity. That would blow your kid mind. How the hell did he just do that? Then there was also this mysterious third green ninja, Reptile, that would sometimes appear with a cryptic phrase. Who the heck was this guy? Could you fight him? Could you play as him? Since the internet wasn't as prevalent back then, players often relied on sharing tips and tricks with friends or fellow gamers at the arcade. This created a sense of community and shared knowledge among players who were trying to uncover the secrets of the game, creating memories and possibly even friendships that could last a lifetime. And I think that's pretty damn awesome. The first Mortal Kombat isn't really anyone's first choice when wanting to experience the classic games these days, but I still enjoyed my time going back to it, and there's no underselling how much the developers did to make the game feel special. They had themselves a winner. Now all they needed to do was improve on what they had in the sequel. And you know they made a sequel, with Mortal Kombat 2 releasing the very next year. Let's take a look. Following his defeat at the hands of Liu Kang, Shang Tsung begs his master Shao Kahn to spare his life. Shang Tsung proposes a tournament held in Outworld, Shao Kahn's domain, where he would hold the home field advantage. Shao Kahn agrees, restoring Shang Tsung's youth and luring his enemies to Outworld, where the next Mortal Kombat tournament begins. Alongside a handful of familiar faces from the first game, Mortal Kombat 2 introduces some new challengers. The secret character Reptile is now available right from the jump. We also have Liu Kang's fellow Shaolin, Kung Lao, Sonya's commanding officer, Jax, the revitalized Shang Tsung, Kitana, the princess of Outworld, and her supposed sister, Mileena. Finally was the monstrous Outworld general, Baraka. The visuals have received a massive upgrade, overall looking much sharper. Though the setting of Outworld made for a darker and grittier tone, it's balanced out with a richer color palette, allowing the more colorful elements to pop. It's a strong blend, which gives MK2 a great visual identity. I do find the portraits for Kitana and Mileena really funny. Their eyes are open so wide, they look like they just heard their uncle casually drop the most racist sentence they've ever heard during Thanksgiving dinner. The gameplay maintains the same button layout as the original, with a few tweaks here and there. More special moves have been added for each character, further diversifying the playstyles between each fighter. Additionally, fighters recover faster from using their attacks, making combos easier to perform. This made the combat feel less restrictive and far more satisfying. Mortal Kombat 2 is a massive step up from its predecessor, with small changes that leave a large impact, giving MK2 a great game feel. Just as before, you can choose to fight against a friend in multiplayer, or tackle a gauntlet of fighters leading up to the newest four-armed menace, Kitaro, and finally the Emperor himself, Shao Kahn. I would love to show you what it looks like to fight these two, but I never made it to them. Why? Because the AI in Mortal Kombat 2 was developed in the very depths of hell. The first two matches are fine. The opponent puts up a fight and everything feels normal. Then the third opponent and beyond just throws that shit out the window and begins reading your inputs like you're a Dr. Seuss book. They block and duck underneath every special move you throw out, responding to each move you make with a reaction time no human player could ever have, making each fight ridiculously unfair. The single player ladder for MK2 is just not fun. I understand this was made for arcades, so the difficulty is how they're going to eat as many quarters from the player as they can, but this is just absurd. I'd want to come back to Mortal Kombat 2 for the multiplayer, but if I ever felt like booting up any of the old games to play solo, MK2 would be among my last choices. Otherwise, MK2 is a bigger, better version of the original. It has a larger cast, with each character now having 2 fatalities each, and additional stage fatalities, which use the unique elements of the environment to finish your foe. They also introduced a few new types of finishers, such as friendships, where you spare your opponent by having your character perform a silly act, and babalities, which turns your opponent into a baby. Okay? More secret characters are present in MK2, including the grey-clad ninja Smoke, my personal favorite character in the series, the bow staff-wielding Jade, and the enigmatic shadow ninja Noob Saibot. And this is where you'll start to notice MK getting a bit bold with recolored characters, now having 5 different colored ninjas and 3 women in leotards. It was an easy way to make new characters, and honestly, it worked. Fans ate it up, especially the secret characters because of how difficult to access they were. As a product, MK2 was everything the prior entry was, but better in almost every way, cementing that Midway had a winning formula that they just need to keep building on. But it's with their next game that they made a bit of a misstep. Let's take a look at Mortal Kombat 3. Having lost the Outworld tournament, it turns out that Shao Kahn is kind of a sore loser. He's begun an all-out invasion of Earth, crossing the boundary line between the 2 realms. This has caused Earthrealm and Outworld to start fusing, causing untold devastation to Earth and claiming billions of lives. Raiden managed to grant protection to a few fighters' souls, leaving them as the final defense between Earthrealm and complete annihilation. Those who remain must band together in hopes of bringing an end to Shao Kahn once and for all. Or so it says in the story. The cast are still all too happy to kick the crap out of their friends in the arcade ladder. Despite some interesting new additions, the roster of MK3 has taken a substantial hit. While the likes of the Cyborg Ninjas are neat additions, many fan favorites from the previous games were either removed or altered to be less interesting. Nearly all the popular ninja characters got the axe. Human Smoke, Noob, Reptile, and Scorpion, the poster boy and most popular character in the series, did not return for MK3, with only Sub-Zero making the cut. However, he has been heavily redesigned, having lost his ninja aesthetic and given a new costume which does not look great, man. Fan favorites Kitana and Melina were also dropped, giving us some new characters that, at least personally, were not good replacements. Nightwolf is just an indigenous stereotype, and Stryker is a regular, schlubby looking cop. Cabal was kinda cool with his respirator mask and hook swords, but not a lot of the roster hit for me, and it was lame compared to what came before. The stages are also a step back. Since the game takes place during the invasion of Earth, a majority of the levels are Earth themed. So rather than ancient temples and acid pools, we have a graveyard, cathedral, subway, and cities. Visually, I think the stages look great, and they do a great job of adding to the game's dark atmosphere. This is meant to be during Earth's most dire hour, and I think the overall vibe fits the bill. But a big thing that separated Mortal Kombat from the rest of its fighting game competition, outside of the violence of course, was its heavier emphasis on mysticism and otherworldly elements. With the changing characters and stages, it lost that flavor that made the series feel unique, and as a result, the game no longer stands out. And despite the stages at least nailing the dark atmosphere set up by the story, many of the fatalities undermine that tone. Many finishers are changed to be far goofier than they used to be. The previous games had their fair share of weird fatalities, but MK3 cranks it up to 11 with the Looney Tunes ways the characters go about killing each other. There's Cabal being so ugly he scares his opponents to death, Cyborg Smoke stuffing a bomb down their horrifyingly outstretched gullet, or the new animalities that have the characters turning into animals, only some of which fit the character. It feels to me like the wacky nature of these fatalities are at odds with the rest of the tone the game is trying to go for, like Mortal Kombat 3 isn't sure what it wants to be. At least in terms of presentation. In terms of gameplay, it's Mortal Kombat. Players of previous titles should know what to expect here, though there are a few notable additions. First is the introduction of a run button, which lets you sprint forward and bridge the gap from your foe faster, at the risk of being left far more open to attacks. It also introduced dial-a combos. Rather than juggling opponents in the air with precise timing, dial-a combos are predetermined combos by hitting a particular series of buttons in rapid succession. This requires quick inputs rather than corresponding to the timing of the actual hits. I don't hate this system, but I prefer how it was in previous games. Timing your attacks feels better than just hitting a string of buttons all at once. I'm thankful that the arcade ladder has a difficulty selection, and overall is just much less punishing than Mortal Kombat 2, making for a more comfortable single-player experience. The bosses Motaro and Shao Kahn are still unfair quarter munchers, but ways of exploiting them become clear quickly. While I still didn't love fighting them, I didn't hate it either. Mortal Kombat 3 does fix a few things from MK2, but it's overall a weaker game than both its predecessors. And it seemed Midway was aware that MK3 hadn't reached its full potential either, as that very same year, an updated re-release of MK3 was made, going by Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. The big highlight was the now massive roster. The secret character Cyber Smoke is now made playable without needing to enter a code, and everyone who hadn't returned the first time around has been brought back. Yeah, when you put them all in one character select screen, the recolors become even more obvious, but how could I be upset about that? Everyone is here, and it's awesome. Look at the size of this character select screen. I was also pleased to see they added a few more stages based on Outworld, making the level variety far more interesting, and it allowed me to appreciate the ones on Earth more. For gameplay, a few tweaks were made to the base roster to balance them out a bit more, but ultimately, the gameplay of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is mostly the same as before, and as such, your enjoyment will be similar to the base game. While I still prefer 2, the increased roster of characters does encourage me to experiment with the different fighters far more, and because the game is more approachable on the single player side of things, Ultimate 3 is the classic game that I find myself returning to the most. As I was playing the DS port, there were a few new features that I got to enjoy. The DS port had both wireless and online play, allowing you to fight other players around the world, which was a nifty addition. They also made use of the 2 screens by having the second screen show the inputs for special moves and finishers. Very handy, since 3 doesn't have an in-game move list otherwise. What sucks is the finishers don't say what distance you need to be from your opponent, as fatalities and the like require characters to be in a particular position on the stage to execute. So even though I knew the input, I still had no idea if it needed to be right up in my opponent's face or halfway across the screen. Still, having the special moves on the second screen was perfect, probably the best use I can think of for the dual screen technology. The ultimate update to Mortal Kombat 3 did a lot to change my outlook on the game. It would be perfect if it played more like 2, but what we have is still pretty great. But we still have one more port of Ultimate 3 to look at, as at the end of 2001, Midway decided to port the game to the Game Boy Advance, referred to as Mortal Kombat Advance. This would be a tricky endeavor, as the Game Boy only had 4 buttons compared to the other system's 6. But Lord knows that wasn't the only problem with this game. Let's look at Mortal Kombat Advance for the Game Boy Advance. Okay, I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. Mortal Kombat Advance is the single biggest piece of dog shit that I've ever had the displeasure of playing. Everything seems fine when you first boot it up. The music sounds alright, and the visuals all look good. The sprites are obviously a bit compressed, and the backgrounds can look grainy, but I understand that this is a sacrifice that needs to be made in the porting process. Best of all, MKA has the full roster, with the inclusion of Rain, a character based on a Prince album, and Noob Saibot, who is only accessible in certain versions of 3. And once you beat the arcade mode on certain difficulties, you can unlock Human Smoke, and even the boss characters Motaro and Shao Kahn. That's pretty cool. So at this point, by all appearances, MKA is a solid port. Then you actually start playing. Even on the easiest difficulty, the AI in this game is cracked out of its mind, immediately unleashing a flurry of attacks that require a near superhuman level of reflexes to block, all while the player has some of the most sluggish, awful feeling controls I've ever experienced. I kid you not, I could barely win a round against this ludicrous AI, let alone a match. In fact, during my hour-long recording session, I only won a single match, and that was only because the computer seemed to shut down against my spam of Sector's missiles, something which never happened again. So if I wanted to unlock Human Smoke, I would need to fight 9 matches against these Terminators, all while using these unresponsive controls that make me feel like I'm playing underwater? F*** off. On top of all of that, every character has had their number of fatalities reduced to 1, with the inclusion of a friendship. No animalities, no babalities, no fatality 2, all scrapped. Oh, and here, watch this 10-second clip, and see if you can notice the problem. Did you hear it? Every character, minus the cyborgs for some reason, plays a female voice clip when they jump, specifically Shiva's voice clip. How did that happen? How did no one catch that? I know it doesn't affect the gameplay, but the fact that such a glaringly obvious mistake like that wasn't caught tells you everything you need to know about Advance. rushed out the door to make it in time for the holidays. I know some people get enjoyment out of playing bad games. Superman 64 and Sonic 06 have become nearly legendary because of it. But believe me when I say there's not a single iota of joy to be found here. Don't waste your money with this game. Don't waste your time with this game. The fact this was allowed to hit store shelves is an embarrassment and an utter disgrace to the Mortal Kombat brand. That last little bit of heat aside, the classic Mortal Kombat games are still fun fighters to this day. There's no underselling how important the first entry was to gaming in general, and while MK3 stumbled a bit in how it felt like a bit of an identity crisis, each game brought something to the table and made it stand out in its own right. I think it will come as no surprise to anyone to see Mortal Kombat Advance take the very bottom of the ranking, as it so rightly deserves. I found Uzumaki Chronicles to be a bit dull and repetitive at times, but in no universe is that comparable to this nigh unplayable piece of dreck. I can't see MK Advance rising from dead last anytime soon, if ever. Mortal Kombat 3 I'll place just below Maze of Shadows, as there's basically no reason I'll ever go back to experience it again when Ultimate 3 exists. Speaking of, Ultimate will place right above Red Faction, while 2 will squeak a few spots higher just ahead of Ultimate Ninja Storm. 2 had the potential to place much higher, but that single player AI means it's a game I only want to revisit for multiplayer, which isn't all that common these days. And that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a like. It's really helpful for getting my channel out there. Which of the classic games was your favorite? Do you prefer a particular version? And most importantly, are you Team Scorpion or Team Sub-Zero? Let me know down in the comments. I always love getting to chat games with you all. For our next video, we'll be returning to the world of Pokemon, with the next in the mainline series. Please look forward to that. In the meanwhile, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. May we see each other again when we turn to the next chapter in the Tome of Silver.